a significant portion of our role, even if you go back historically, even up to now, where we're trying to put ourselves into the shoes of somebody else to try and express things from their point of view or try and perceive things from their point of view. But we don't necessarily do that with our teammates. Try and get into their perspective and their mindset. So what do you care about, man? Like, what are you trying to solve here? In your day-to-day, how can I help you be more awesome and have a much more relaxed time and, you know, work on the things that you want to work? So you could either tell yourself the same story that you tell yourself, that they are the villain, they are the baddie in this conversation, in this interaction, or you could get curious and say, I wonder what's making them react like that. How much are you contributing to the quality of the product that your team is building?
Welcome everyone to BrowserStack Talks, a podcast that transforms testing pain points into playbooks. I'm your host, David, and today we will be tackling something foundational, the human element of building great software. Our guest is a true leader in this space, a coach, and who's helped countless teams become better testers, but also just work better together. So I'd like to introduce Vernon. Vernon, please tell our guests who you are.
Greetings, Dave. Can I call you Dave? Greetings, Dave.
Yeah, Dave's good.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Vernon. I've been in the software testing field for over 20 years now, predominantly in the testing side of things. My current day job is as a senior engineering manager for a QA team at a localization SaaS company, which is very cool. And then outside of that, I will present at conferences, be part of the community, do training. I have a podcast with my pal Richard, who might have been on this podcast. I don't know.
Not yet,
but I'm sure he will appear at some point.
Probably.
I'm based in the UK, in a place called Leicester, one of those annoying British cities that has a weird spelling compared to how you say it. I am married. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are blokes, and one of them has just become a teenager. So that is me.
Amazing. So, Vernon, like one of the things that I know you for, a lot of people know you for, is kind of the coaching and focusing in on the human element. And I think, at least for my career, I've gone through being the senior manager in a team before you're a senior manager. A lot of the work actually in your day job, without realizing, it centers around coaching. And you focus in on coaching rather than being a manager. Like, what is the difference to you, and how do you go through that?
I think there's this spectrum and or maybe scale. And at one end of the scale, there is I'm the person with the answers and you're the person without the answers. Okay. And then at the other end of the scale, you're the person with the answers and I'm the person without the answers. So if I'm a coach, I'm usually at this end of the scale, which is I don't have the answers, you have the answers. What I have to do is help you, ask you the right questions so that you can figure out for yourself what it is that you want to do next, or how to overcome the problem or challenge, or how to achieve the goal that you're focusing in on at the time. And my job is not to tell you. My job is to help you figure it out. At the other end, when I've got the answers, my job is to tell you. So you have a goal, you have some challenge, whatever it is that you're focusing into. You say, how do I do that? And I say, so you do this and then do this and then do this, and then you'll achieve the outcome. They're the 2 extremes. And that is not to say that one extreme or one end of that spectrum is better than the other. As usual, let context be your guide. Yeah. I like to quip. I like to be silly. If I come and visit Dave, let's say Dave works in some, ridiculously huge office, and I come and hang out with him, and we're doing this recording in the same space, same physical location, and we're having such a good time that I lose track of time, and I need to get from his office to the airport. And I say, Dave, I've never been to this town before. Like, how do I get, I need to get there in like half an hour. What do I do? And Dave says, well, how do you think you should get there, Vernon? No, that's not what we're going for. Coaching is not required at that time. It's not helpful. I just need the answer. And so it's about understanding when is the best situation to use which approach. And then when you're using that approach, try and always be mindful and thinking about, well, how can I be helpful? How am I helping in this situation? And in between those two points is mentoring, I guess. You've got coaching, you've got teaching, or, I think I was always trying to think of what my friend Toby would say instead of teaching, but there's teaching over there. And in the middle, you've got mentoring, which is I have the experience, but I'm not necessarily going to lead with it. And it's about just flowing between those three kind of polarities or methodologies or frames, if you like.
Yeah. That's really good. Like, I think a lot of people think with any job, right? Everything is black and white, and then they start doing it, and then they realize like there is no black, there is no white, and if you're at those extremes, something has gone wrong, right? You need to kind of be working in the shades of grey constantly, and I think that can help you. And I know, like, which leads me on to my next question is like, how do you? Because coaches, their job is always about building up the person, right? Giving them the frameworks that they need to be successful where possible, without necessarily giving them the answer, like you said, right? Like, you've got to be one of those things, and depending on context. And sometimes you want to be able to build up, or at least my understanding is you want to build up people to go, hey, I've now got a framework. I feel confident I can do this thing, right? And then they can become the mentor, the thing. What are the most common challenges that you're seeing, like in the testing world, developers, and like, what is the kind of, from there, do you go like, this is what you need to do to grow your skills to overcome that, so that you're kind of guiding and telling and doing things like that? Like, so how do you, like, what frameworks do you use? How do you build up those frameworks for people? Do you teach people to create their own frameworks?
It depends on what your situation is. So a common situation that I see testers in is we find ourselves in situations where we're not being taken seriously. I'm doing the air quotes for people who can't see, because, not being taken seriously can mean, is itself quite broad, depending on the individual that you're talking about and the situation that they're in. And so it's the thing that I find myself coming back to is that question is, if I'm speaking to a particular tester, I'm working with a particular tester or their peers, I'm trying to understand what is it that you want to even have happen in the first place? Like, what's going on? What's the deal? Like, what is the impact that you're trying to have, or what is the goal that you're trying to achieve? And once you've figured that out, then it's about saying, okay, so what can we do now? We're in this particular situation. For testers in a situation where they're not being taken seriously, I guess there are two levers you can pull.
Yeah.
There's the lever that controls everybody else. Says, well, you must be, whenever Dave wants to go come to a meeting about how we're going to build this thing, you should invite him. And you should include his opinion, and you should seek his opinion. Now, why are you not seeking his opinion? This kind of thing. And then there's the lever that controls you. And the lever that controls you is usually a lot easier to get access to. It's usually a lot easier to pull. And so I kind of focus there and try and have people operate and communicate and behave in a way that makes the outcome that they desire more likely. Not necessarily guaranteed, but certainly more likely. So if you want to be taken more seriously, you should consider how you are interacting with your teammates or those people that are not taking you seriously. What is it that is causing them to interact with you in a way that you don't like? So back to what I said before, some of that is going to be within your control, and some of that is going to be down to what they're doing. You should probably start with the stuff that you can control and say, okay, so am I communicating about testing in a way that adds credibility or burns credibility?
Yeah.
In my day-to-day interactions with the team, am I increasing my credibility or am I reducing my credit? It's just constantly going through that loop. So what am I doing, saying, reacting, behaving, and how might that be perceived by my teammates, my co-workers, people up the food chain from me, same level as me, below me, whatever.
Yeah.
And then what could I do to kind of change those perceptions based on what I say, do, act, etc.
Everything you've said there is just pure gold for me, and I feel like a lot of what you've said I learned quite late in my career. Right, I was quite successful in what I was doing, but I hit this glass ceiling, and I couldn't get people to understand me better, things like that. And I always used to just get frustrated, and then that frustration leads to, why are these people idiots, right? And clearly they're not idiots. But that's the thought process I went through. And I say that quite late in my career, I'm talking, I've been in the industry just over 20 years now. And I'm talking I reached 15 years in the industry before I realized what I was doing wrong. And I realized it because I had a really great coach who kind of oh, think about this. How does this make you feel? How could you have changed that, right? It's just perfect. But it's sometimes you just need that person to guide you through those things, even if it's saying the obvious. But it might be obvious when you hear it, but it wasn't obvious to you before hearing it.
I think I was going through this. We've probably been in the industry for the similar amount of time, and I probably realized it the same way I do. I definitely went through a period of my career. I was like, what kind of bloody moron would produce a bug like this? You absolute clowns. I'm going to write this in my bug report, and I am not going to think about how my disdain for this bug existing is showing through the bug report. I don't care. You need to know that you're an asshole. And that is how to make enemies and alienate people. That's not going to be particularly helpful. The thing that I find interesting about this is basically what it boils down to is your ability as an individual to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and that is the bread and butter of a tester. You would think, there is a significant portion of our role, even if you go back historically, even up to now, where we're trying to put ourselves into the shoes of somebody else to try and express things from their point of view or try and perceive things from their point of view. But we don't necessarily do that with our teammates. We just expect them to understand.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying that we should not have expectations of our teammates, because we should. They're our teammates. They are supposed to, look out for us and care for our opinions and, not try and malign us. That is for sure. But I'm just saying, maybe you should consider looking at things from the other person's point of view every once in a while and genuinely put in the effort, not just do it in this facetious way, not in oh, well, I think Vern is incredibly handsome and articulate and wonderful. And no, actually really think about it. And then think about yourself, why are they saying what they're saying, and why they do what's different about their experience of testing and testers that causes them to think, oh, maybe Vern's being a bit of a pain in the bum here, so let me do, X, Y, and Z, and I find that annoying. Put yourself in their shoes and think, what could they have experienced? What happened before we ended up teammates in this team in their career? Have I even spoke to them about their career? Don't even know where they came from, what they were doing before. Have they worked with testers before? If they did, what kind? If they didn't, that's an interesting data point, and maybe you're in a great position to start to change that perception. But we don't do it. We've got the skill, but we don't necessarily do it. We just assume that everybody should understand where we're coming from immediately.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing for me is that like I was pretty good at communicating it, but my problem was always getting that buy-in that I needed. Right? Like I couldn't convince. I got to a stage where people didn't see the value in why I was saying these things. Right? My team were like, "Yeah, that makes perfect sense." And then I get wider and wider, and I have this phrase of I can't remember where I take it. I didn't create it, but it was like I would always try to grow my sphere of influence. Right? And from there, go, hey, what do you think of this? Blah, blah, blah. And then like, it'd be cool. And I get everyone. And then I get to kind of final boss stage. And kind of like, it's like, you know, to use a gaming reference, like one hit kill, right? You're dead. Like the whole idea is gone. You're like, why did they not understand my magic? Everyone else understood my magic. I got to this point.
Yeah, I think it's a blend. I mean, this is something else that I've started to get into more and more over the past few years is the topic of sales and marketing and this kind of thing. Because I think that is another topic that plays really well with coaching and the worldview and experience of, you know, a lot of testers out there. So we just lead with the solution and we try and just hit people over the head with the solution.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is most people's quite negative experience of what sales is people trying to convince me to do something that I don't really care about, I've got no interest in, and this person's just trying to bludgeon me to death and just, no, you need this thing, no, you need this thing, no, you need this thing. Instead of the best salespeople in the world, they don't do that. They try and understand, what is your situation, Dave? Where are you coming from? What is the problem what's the most painful, annoying problem that you've got in your life right now?
Yeah.
And they understand that. And then they say, oh, I've got a solution. Would you like it? It does this. Well, why don't we try this little experiment here? And then we'll see what happens. And then afterwards we can decide what to do. Instead, we just skip all of that and go straight to, I am the great and glorious Vernon, and I have the solution to all the team's ills, and you must listen to me because I am spectacularly insightful, knowledgeable, experienced, and not to say handsome. And so please listen to me. In fact, not please, you will listen to me. We've all been on the other side of that conversation, and we know how much we love it, air quotes again. Yeah. We don't like it. We don't like it at all. We don't like being dictated to, patronized, you know, told before anyone's even said hello and hi, how are you? So we should try to do some of those things and meet our teammates at least halfway, try and get into their perspective and their mindset. So what do you care about, man? Like, what are you trying to solve here? In your day-to-day, how can I help you be more awesome and have a much more relaxed time and, you know, work on the things that you want to work on, and all this kind of stuff. And you'll find the more you help those people, the more influence you will build, and the more those people will be interested to hear what you've got to say. Because you're Dave. Oh, Dave's the guy who helped me do the thing. He helped me create all this test data. He made it so that I'm not being constantly interrupted on something I delivered 2 weeks ago. I can just constantly be working most of the time, the vast majority of the time, on the interesting problem that is in front of me, instead of constantly being interrupted and pulled back. Amazing. If Van needs my help, I'm here. Or if Dave needs my help, let's go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like the key part here, and I mix metaphors, so kind of like is that like
me too.
Is that, you know, when you're trying to do all of this stuff, a lot of it feels like herding cats, right?
Yeah.
And you try your best, but it's impossible. And then the problem comes down to the glue that binds us, right? So there's my mixed metaphor. is like, so what do you, like, you've said to people, meet them halfway. What are the like steps? Like, do you have steps that you go like, do X, do Y, do this, or like, how do you work with your team so that they actually do that rather than just give it lip service?
Well, what I'm encouraging them to do is there are natural touch points or interaction points that they have with individuals in the team or the team collectively, and then I'll just encourage people and get people to experiment with a particular concept or tactic in that moment. So you might be talking about when you're in the DMs, or if you're pairing with a dev, or if you've asked the dev a question, and they come back to you with what you consider to be a suboptimal response. So you could either tell yourself the same story that you tell yourself, that they are the villain, they are the baddie in this conversation, in this interaction, or you could get curious and say, I wonder what's making them react like that.
Yeah.
And just encourage people to practice some curiosity in that moment. Or it could be a situation where you're in some kind of refinement session. You're trying to get to the bottom of how we're going to deliver a thing, how we're going to build a thing. The whole conversation has gone on, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long it's gone on, and you haven't said anything. And then somebody says, hey, Dave, you've not said anything. Like, what are you thinking? And maybe your usual response in that situation is to say, nope, I've got nothing more to add. I'm good. That's one. You could do that, or you could do something different. You could say, no, because Sharon talked about this thing, and I was wondering about how, this user would be impacted by this change, but what Sharon said made it clear because X, Y, and Z. So I'm cool with that. And I had this other thing that I was going to ask, but Dave talked about how this particular database is going to store the information, so I'm absolutely fine. I haven't got any more questions, pretty much. If I do have any questions, though, I'll definitely chuck them into the Slack channel and then, chase up with follow up with whoever needs to be followed up with. Those two answers are not the same. Yeah. They're not the same. One of them will make people think, is Vern even awake? Was he even listening? And the other one is, okay, fine. Vern is good. If Vern was listening, he's engaged, he's cool, and he'll hit us up if he has any more questions. And so it's just looking for those opportunities and then figuring out what is it that usually happens and then coming up with ideas of things we can do instead.
That's really good. So the follow-on to that, like those are all the positives. How do you give people the space and the confidence to fail while trying to do all of that?
Bloody hell. I think excellent question. I think the first thing the first thing I usually tend to do is to build up that rapport and trust and convey that. Like, I'm not expecting perfection because I am not perfect. I will fail. I will make mistakes. That's completely normal. Yeah. But what we want to do is we want to notice the mistakes, support each other, understand what happened, try and make new mistakes as quickly as possible rather than keep repeating the mistakes. And sometimes it isn't a safe to fail environment. And so that means I'll have to go and do some legwork with, because in my current team, this is quite normal. I'm their line manager, but they're in a delivery team. They're an individual contributing tester in a delivery team. And in that delivery team, you'll have people like product owners, you'll have people like engineering managers or team leads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in that environment, it's not safe for them to fail. It's all well and good if it's not safe to fail directly in my team of people. I can deal with that. But if it's somewhere else, I now have to go and do some work with the leadership folks in that situation and kind of figure out, okay, what's going on there? Try and get some specific examples of where people have felt unsafe, uncared for, where they'd rather just kind of retreat into the background rather than be front and center, and work with those people to try and make that situation better for their individual contributors. That is not easy, but it's necessary because I can't be everywhere at once. And so that kind of ties back into the first point of establishing the trust, if they know that I have their back,
Yeah.
then at least it makes it more likely that they'll bring problems to me. So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I think trust is so important. And like, at least like when I've run engineering teams, when I've run QA teams, the thing that I always try do is that I use this acronym. I haven't created it, but I use it all the time, which is fail means first attempt in learning, right? You get to fail once, right? After that, you need to show that you've done enough to make sure that you didn't try fail in that space again, right? It's okay that if you did, but you need to show that you're not recreating the exact same scenario in how you deal with people, how you build something, whatever, right? Like you're constantly learning. And if you show me that, I will always have your back, right? Because I want to see that you're learning, you're growing, you're becoming a better engineer, because like to go from a junior to senior staff principal, right? Like the important thing is you've made all these mistakes in your past, but you know not to repeat them in the future, right? Or you attempt to, is the thing on my side.
I came across this framework that I'm trying to remember well enough to describe to you now, and it's I think it's got 4 steps to it. I think one of them is, did you know what the expectation was to the person who has failed, right?
Yeah.
Did you know what the expectation was of you in this particular situation? If not, okay, amazing. If you did, maybe the question is, were you able to do the thing? If you were not able to do the thing, then okay, we can deal with that. But if you were able to do the thing, then maybe the question is, did you want to do this thing? What's going on? Do you just not agree? If you do disagree, let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
And if you do agree and you do understand all the other then now it's just okay. Now it's just a different conversation now, because you knew what the expectations were, you knew how to do it, and you'd signed up, you'd agreed to do it. Now it's just okay. What is going on? Like, we need to talk about how we could make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if any of the other questions are no, then that's on me, and I need to correct that situation with them. And now we're on the same page, and now the expectations are clear, and the capabilities are set, and I've got on the same page as them in terms of, do they agree that this is worth doing or not? So going through that framework, or those, getting curious about those things again and not just assuming, is definitely wise.
Yeah, definitely. And so kind of, I think this leads on to hopefully a really nice question, is like, can you show, do you have an example? Because I think some people tend to learn from examples rather than like you've given them the framework of where you've made this like intervention and it's had a dramatic and positive impact on how the team or kind of the person's performances and their morale. Is there one that you could share?
Is there one I can share? Yeah. So there's some that are not super, don't have a necessarily positive ending. But there definitely tons of situations that boil down to, and I've talked about some of these examples throughout the conversation, where people have not realized what the expectations were of them in a given situation, and they've not realized how they're being perceived in a given situation. And so what I will do is I'll kind of, sometimes very explicitly and sometimes not all of that explicitly, but I'll work through that process of trying to make clear, here's what good looks like in that situation. Did you know that? And if you did not know that, cool. Now let's go away and talk about the intricacies of what good looks like in this particular situation. So a bunch of situations that I've been in that I've kind of alluded to in this conversation. One of them is that how much are you contributing to the quality of the product that your team is building? Because your team is not 100% sure what you are doing. For example, when you're in a refinement conversation, you don't say anything. And when you do say something, all you say is, no, I'm fine. It might be true. And you might have thought of all the different questions as the conversation was going. And then as people were given answers and you were able to tick those things off in your head, all of that is completely invisible to people. So make it visible. Because you are the testing expert in this conversation. Their expectations are you're going to be contributing to the conversation. Did you know that? They're expecting you to surface the risk. They're expecting you to what about this? They're expecting you to kind of surface, well, if we go after this thing, it means that this thing is going to be a problem. These are contradictory conditions. What do we do in that situation? They're not necessarily expecting you to have the answers, but they do expect you to go, whoa, that's weird. Has anyone else seen that weird thing? That's weird. What's the weird thing?
Yeah.
So making that clear and giving people examples of how to do that is one situation where I've used that kind of framework quite explicitly to get the outcome that everybody wants.
Yeah. I like that. And I think it's really important because even as a junior, an intern, right, you can start being part of those conversations. At worst, they go, oh, we thought about this, and you learn something. And at best, they go, we never thought of that in the first place. Let us go back to the drawing board. And that's got nothing to do with seniority, things like that. It's just being curious, right? Like, I think this is, I had Marit on doing the podcast a while back, and she's a tour de force of just everything in the testing space, right? She's so nice, so knowledgeable, and she's just like, ask questions, be curious, like, and if you don't have you don't have the knowledge, use AI to help you extend your imagination, right? And
yes. Exactly. You don't need to be senior to ask questions. And again, I think both of us talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the call. There's ways of asking questions. So even if you are an intern and a junior, you can frame that question in terms of, I just want to make sure I understand what's going on because I've only just got here. But you said A, B, and C, and if that is true, then 1, 2, 3, and X, Y, Z. Like, is that correct? Because it feels like if those things are true, this happens. Is that right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people go, oh, wow, no, that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about, like, cheers. Or maybe they'll go, no, great question. It's fine. And here's why. It's fine because reasons. You've learned, you've established a little bit of credibility with the team because you weren't shy about asking a question.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any downsides provided you approach it in the right way and not trying to just talk for the sake of talking or trying to sound like a know-it-all, or just if you're asking from a place of I am part of the team and I'm trying to help the team be more effective, you're basically winning.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So I think we've given people a lot to think about and kind of learn from this. I think kind of I just want to do a bit of a recap because we've gone through so many really good things, and following that, we'll move on to a bit of a quick fire round. So kind of the key things here are ask questions, but ask them in a meaningful way. Don't be afraid to fail, but as long as you're learning, and have great empathy for how others in the team are doing things like that, understanding it from their side rather than just go, I know everything. I think those are the three key takeaways that I think everyone can take away from this call.
Yeah, I think where it ties back into coaching, I'll do this super quickly, right? So you've got unconditional positive regard. Instead of assuming that everyone is out to get you, assume that they are as amazing as you. They just don't have the same perspective.
Yeah.
So what you need to do then is, next coaching skill, active listening, which is listening with more than just your ears. How do people say things? So when Dave joined the call, he said, "How are you, Vern?" Now, if I said, "I am absolutely fine," that says one thing. And if I say, "Yeah, I'm absolutely fine," that says something completely different. And you need to notice the difference between those two answers. So that's active listening. And then powerful questions is asking open questions instead of closed questions. So if Dave said to me when I joined the call, "Are you okay?" That is a closed question. The answer is yes or no. If he said, "How are you?" if I tried to answer it yes or no, it wouldn't make any sense. Or maybe it would for comedic purposes, right? But, that is the difference. So if you can use those things in your interactions with people as a tester, you will be winning. And closed questions are not bad and open questions are not good. Wrong question, wrong situation is bad. Right question, right situation is good.
Yeah. Unless you're having to work with colleagues in a different continent, and this is a joke, by the way, is that North Americans tend to start everything from amazing, right? How are you doing?
No.
Amazing. You ask Europeans the same question, it's like, not bad, right? Like that is the go-to. And it's the one thing that I've always noticed I find hilarious. It's like, if you ask a German, "How are you doing?" they will answer, right? Where like in certain parts of the world, they it was meant to be a closed question.
I've worked with so many Germans that is my favorite example as well. That's why I was chuckling when you did that, because that is exactly right. Cultural specifics are important. That can change the dynamic. So that's why the active listening is almost like just pay attention to as much as possible.
Yeah.
In an interaction with somebody. That's a really good example.
Awesome. Right. So we're going to move on to quick fire round.
Yes.
First kind of thoughts that comes to your mind when I ask it. They're very short, and then we'll get through them. Favorite leadership book you've read?
Crucial Conversations.
Amazing book. You're not the first to recommend that book, but I agree. Definitely. Most underrated skill for a quality leader?
Listening.
One metric that is often overemphasized?
Throughput.
If you weren't doing the role you're doing today, or coaching, what would your dream career be?
Oh, so when I was younger, my dream career was football playing, video game designing, MCing, like hip hop MCing, astronaut. So as much of that list as I could have picked off, that's what I would like to be doing.
Awesome. The astronaut at the end just really threw me. Like I could get like all the other bits in this. Like I want to be a hip hop MC astronaut. And you're like, what?
Going to space? Are you kidding me, man? Get in. That's the best.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing, Vernon. I've had a fantastic time. I've learned a lot from you. Thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone wants to kind of see what you're doing, get hold of you, what are the best avenues to find you?
Wow, I would say LinkedIn, and I have a website, vernonrichards.com. I think there's a contact thing on there, but I'd say LinkedIn, my website, or you can hit me and Richard up on the podcast in some way, shape, or form. They're the best ways.
Amazing. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us today. Make sure that you kind of hit subscribe or follow, depending on the platform you're on, so you get to know when our next episode is going to be out. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you.